So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how to maybe upvalue this, okay guys? I want to try to make a product, something that I can use. One for my personal usage, but you also could sell. So first step is we have a large fruit farm and we have fruit trees, and I need to do nutrition for my fruit trees. I need them to basically, in the rainy season, the rains will come, and I want nutrition to be there at the growth season. So I understand that a tree, as it grows, each year it kind of expands by diameter. That's an exponential factor. Every time we expand diameter, it's by 4. So boom, 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 boom. So there's a drip line, so that the water hits the tree, comes down and drips on the drip line of the tree, and that's where its roots come out to the edge of the drip line. So I really want to get that nutrition right at the drip line. So I'm going to do that. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what I call a bio ball, or trademarked Bose balls. Yeah, my joke's not so good. Okay, so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to make these balls here. But I know that my fruit trees are fruit trees and they like calcium. Fruiting plants need calcium to fruit. And if I take eggshells, they're really hard to compost. You put it in the compost, you put it in the garden, they just like don't go away. So what I'm going to do is I take the eggshells from the kitchen, so we're going to go get them in a second. And we're going to crush those up, and then we're going to mix them in with our castings, and then we're going to compress them into balls, and then we're going to dry them. So I make those balls each month, and I store them. And then next year, prior to the rainy season, I will go to the edge of my fruit trees, and depending on the diameter or age of the fruit tree, I will go around the perimeter. So if it's a small one, I might put 2 or 3. If it's a bigger, I might put 4 or 5. At the drip line, and I'm going to bury it at the drip line, and I'm going to dig a hole, and I'm going to put the ball just at the top. I can just barely see it. And when the drip comes down, a lot of water is going to hit that ball, and it's going to loosen. Okay? So it's going to have the worm eggs in the ball. So these are like worm balls, worm egg balls. And the worm eggs now have moisture, right? And there's food source. And that's it. Wow, this is the right environment. And they're going to hatch. And they're going to start to grow. Within the rainy season, our rainy season is 4 months of good rains, right? But the eggs start to hatch, and at 3 months they breed. The nutrient leaching through from the castings will feed the tree. The tree will drop leaves in its growth cycle, high grass growth, right? That will be there. So the worms will breed. They want to live. They'll go, and then they're going to breed and lay eggs prior to the end of the rainy season. So then I've inoculated that area with worms, one, and I've also provided nutrient or source for and the worms can eat the eggshells. That will provide the calcium in the soil to provide good fruiting, and also flowering. If you have flower plants, like I will have flowers in my house, and I like my nice flowers. Give eggs higher calcium is for flowering and fruiting, and worms can help us to process that. So we're going to come back to that one, and then another product that we can make is long term. And when I say long term, when something is short term, it's more soluble. I put it in, it's soluble. The plant eats it very quickly because it's easy. And if it's more dense, non-soluble, it takes longer time to release. So it's like a time release fertilization. So sometimes in our homes, we want to fertilize our plants, so, like a potted plant. So how do I do that? Well, here I've made this, and it can be processed a little better, but it's fine for me. So I made this, and this is worm castings with eggshells. But how did I get it to look like this little product? And if imagine this was in a bag, and I put organic, right, organic flour fertilization, long-term fertilization. Okay, cool. I take this, and I put a little bit on my potted plant. And then when I water, because it's been densified, it's so dense, it takes time to break down. So it gets like a time-released fertilization to that plant. So this is potting flower fertilizer, if you will. Or what's really nice, if you want to grow orchids and you want to be organic, it's kind of difficult. Where do I get organic orchid food? And it's expensive. Man, I want to be organic. Freaking stuff's expensive. What does orchids eat? How do I feed my orchids? This is really weird. But if I make this, and it's in this form, it's easy for me to get this into my orchid. My water, there's my orchid food. Has everything it needs. And so I could either, one, if I want to grow those types of plants, I have food for them. And or I can sell it to people that wanted to have an orchid food at a high value there. I mean, imagine if I can sell a kilo of this for $10, right? Which is functionally, you could put this in there too, right? But it might dilute too fast or get, but if I sell this to people that have orchids, what would they pay? And a 1 kilo would be a lot of orchid food, right? So they would think that was a really great value. No, you put it in just like that. And then when you water your plants, it moist. But then it's so dense that it takes a long time to go away. So there's that long-term fertilization effect. Instead of if you put this and you water it, it looks like it's instantly gone. So then the person that is utilizing this, maybe call it marketing, but it works. They see that there for their plants and they don't necessarily use as much of it and they think it's a great value. So I look at this as a long-term, like denser, it's gonna portray. So I might put this in that on my orchid once a month. I water every day, but I only put this once a month. Where if I had to use this one, it would leach out too fast. And then some of it would actually probably drip out as leach it. Then I would be losing it. And this one doesn't drip out as leach it because of the densification. First step is we have to take our eggshells. I like to put them out in the sun. One, if there's a little bit they weren't clean, then they're not really as dirty as fresh ones. Okay, so we could keep these, put them in the sun. 2 days later, 3 days later, they'll be like sterilized. So next level is I want to crush these. I typically would just do it like that. It's enough for these type of balls. Okay. You could run it through a grain mill or some type of grinder or something like that if you really wanted to get it more pulverized. So you guys can all come help. We'll go and get some more worm castings. So we're going to mix this into the worm castings so that we can make some bio balls. Once we make some of those, then I'll show you another one where we're going to actually make more of a fertilizer. So we're going to put it through the grinder and come out into like densified little pellets. So we're going to pelletize basically our castings with this. Okay. So. When we made the balls, it was pretty simple, guys. We're going to make some of those after they had been crushed into about that size, the size of your hand, and you dry it, compacted worm castings with the eggshells. I save them. I go back at the end of the next year. I dig a hole right at the tree line. Again, dig it in. It's like that. The rain will come down. The worms will hatch. Go in. You'll get your nutrition. So you have both nitrogen, other trace minerals, plus the calcium. Very good for your fruit tree. So that could be a product. Even if you wanted to sell it at the market and educate someone on what its use was, you could do that. Maybe even process it better than ours. We just do it by hand. Here's another one. So we've got our wheelbarrow. So we have our castings, and we're basically going to put in our eggshells. Okay. Then we're going to mix them up. Okay, so something like that, right? So I take these. This is a meat grinder, so obviously we're not here into grinding meat so much, but it works really good for this process. So I'll feather this in there so y'all can kind of do that. And this also easily could have been hooked to an electric motor, but okay, we can put it in. So just kind of feather it in there. Here we have our finished product where we have these are now dried and compressed. And even when a deer is watering them, which you would have watered this today, it still doesn't like dissolve. So it takes a lot more. So then in this instance, it's more like time release. So you put it on top, you water each day, and you time release instead of like a big bang. And it makes the product last longer. It's more time released, which is a thing that's nice. You've got calcium, so when it flowers, you're gonna have nice flowering. So pretty easy. While we're doing that, very simply, we do the ball one. It's faster because that's cool. It makes a product, and I think that if you bag that later, it'll be highly marketable. So here I get this, about that handful, and I just smush it. Maybe about 3 times, and then I get the compaction. Yep, I set that out, it dries. I have a ball, I save them, I have a bunch over here, so next year, we used most of the ones that we made last year. That was just left over from last course. So next year I'll end up with a lot. So all of my trees, I might put 3 or 4 per tree. It's a really easy to do job, so do that. And I just set it here. Let it dry for about 2-3 days. And I have a bio ball, our Bose bio balls. And one of the better things we do for our fruit trees. So. Okay, so here we go. These, after about 3 or 4 days, they're gonna dry into this state. We'll be able to store them for next year. It's nice hard, put it out so it'll stay indefinitely. Worm castings are said to stay. They have no expiration date as such. They just wait for the right food source, so they need food and moisture. So when the rains come next year, that'll be an exact timing that our fruit trees start to grow, so that'll be great. Equally, this one, 3 or 4 days, is gonna start to dry. I'll come and break it up a little bit. I'll end up making basically like this pelletized fertilizer. So really great product. You can bag that up into a bag, right? You've got the white specks, easy to educate your customer. And then this is really great for people, as I said, come here. I put a little bit in my plants. Also, we have orchids. So if we come around, I'll show you if I want to feed my orchids, which is a great food, orchid food. A lot of times it would be suspect if it was organic. And so over here, I have an orchid. And very easy, pelletized. Just reach up and I put a few on there. When I water, it'll give it to food and I'll have a nice orchid. So it saves me money on having to buy orchid food. And as I said, I'm not sure that the pelletized orchid food is actually organic. Not that we eat the orchids, but still we like to practice organics at Raktamachat. So that gives me another great use for that.